This podcast is part of the Pull Up a Chair podcast network. Let's build community through connection, conversation, and collaboration. This podcast is sponsored by Lever Consulting, editing with a purpose. Check them out at leverconsulting.com for a free consultation.
What does it mean to be happy? 'Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty. Man, we just putting on a show.
Welcome to How's That Working For You Season 2. It's your girls Kat and V, but this time we're taking deeper dives into mental health and breaking stigmas. So get ready because things are about to get real and personal. How's That Working For You is a passion project created with the intention of creating space and awareness around mental health topics that are often hard to talk about. We are not professionals in the field of mental health, but we speak from our own personal experience and thoroughly conduct our own research to help educate others on why it's important to join this conversation.
Hey Kat, what's up?
Nothing much. I just wanted to talk about eating disorders.
Oh, that's a trendy topic right now.
Yeah, I mean, like, you told me about the Demi Lovato tea that I didn't know about. Anyway.
We'll talk about that on the Kat and V show, but in today's episode, what are we talking about?
We're talking about specifically, eating disorders as a whole, but specifically anorexia and bulimia, because when I went to go do research on this topic, I almost felt like I bit off more than I could chew because there was so much information about eating disorders, the different types, like different types of studies and new scientific research. And I'm not a neurobiologist, so I couldn't I tried my best to read it and comprehend it to my best ability, some of these studies, and, I'm not a neurobiologist. But I'll try my best, and I'll definitely link in my own personal experience with it. As some of you guys know, if you follow me on Instagram, I actually battled bulimia for a couple years. I don't have like the full timeline for you, but like it was a couple years and it was on and off. But yeah, bulimia nervosa is the full term for the eating disorder that I have or had. I don't know. Is it kind of like alcoholics where it's like you're always an alcoholic? Do you always have an eating disorder and it's like dormant? I don't know. I feel like maybe I should have done research on that, but I digress.
Either way, you have a healthier relationship with food now.
I do have a healthier relationship with food and my body. It definitely goes back and forth because I feel like the eating disorder mentality just like never fully goes away. When you develop body confidence issues as a kid, it's just like any other type of trauma. Like you don't fully ever get rid of your trauma, right? Like, so yeah. Well, let's take a look at some of the things I found. First of all, there is a stat that I want to open up with. According to the National Association of Anorexia Nervosa and Associated Disorders, 10,200 deaths each year are the direct result of an eating disorder. So that's like a death every 52 minutes.
Holy hot damn.
Yeah. That's exactly not the exact reaction, but I can't, that's just so many deaths. So frequent. And you don't really think about this because it's not your experience. So anyway, if that didn't open your eyes for just a second.
I mean, it really did. I have an unhealthy relationship with eating, but it's like, I don't have an eating disorder.
Well, I mean, like, eating is a coping mechanism. And as long as it doesn't I think you mentioned that your father-in-law had a way to describe it. As long as it doesn't get in the way of your life, it's not really a problem. It's okay to eat food. Like, it's okay to eat your feelings away as long as you manage it in a healthy way. You don't hate yourself, which a lot of people with eating disorders might feel, like me. Well, not anymore, but you know what I mean. So Yeah, that being said, so that's anorexia. And anorexia is characterized by withholding food with the goal to lose weight or have a smaller figure. And a lot of that's linked to body dysmorphia. So when you have body dysmorphia, when you look into the mirror, you literally see something that's different from reality. Whether that be whether that be you're a thin person in reality and you see a bigger person, or the opposite, that's dysmorphia. And dysmorphia is, it's another topic, but related. A very, not similar, but the one that I have, but it's like commonly lumped together, like related in conversation, is bulimia nervosa. And bulimia nervosa is characterized by like binge eating lots of food and then feeling guilty afterwards and purging it by forcing yourself to throw up.
So like what a lot of the movies like make jokes about celebrity women doing.
Yes. And it's different from, some people will forcibly vomit so that they can, if they've eaten something that they think is wrong, they don't feel good. That's different. This is with the intention of maintaining a certain figure. This is eating and then purging. So I feel like it's a very, it's definitely those two are the most commonly discussed and known of eating disorders. Let's talk about bulimia, because that's what I have. And for bulimia, unlike anorexia, where I think that when people mention anorexia, they think like skin and bones, somebody who's very gaunt and fragile looking because they haven't eaten. Bulimia is like, people can look very, very normal because it doesn't actually work, is the thing. It's actually kind of more psychological. It's like purging so that you feel a little better about having eaten all the food. And that's why it was such a problem, because a lot of people who have bulimia don't know that it doesn't work. Because what happens is that when you eat and it goes through part of your system, unless you like throw up right away, your body's already processed all of those calories and already absorbed all of that. So all you're doing is just like making the physical food remnants leave your body the opposite direction that it's supposed to go. So it's actually like extremely problematic because it doesn't work. Here's the actual problems, is that untreated bulimia can lead to serious illness, including gastrointestinal problems, electrolyte imbalance, and cardiovascular disease. And anorexia can cause muscle wasting, heart and brain damage, and multi-organ failure. AKA death. Yes, death. Like we mentioned, every 52 minutes, somebody passes from this horrible diseases. And so anorexia is reported to having one of the highest mortality rates of any psychiatric disorder. Again, this is according to American Psychological Association. I don't know. It's doing research on this was so exhausting because it was just a little triggering for me, a little bit too. It's like, wow. I think luckily for me, I think that it didn't happen as consistent enough for it to really have this, like the actual, like actually I did have gastrointestinal problems for a little bit, but then I think because I was younger, my body kind of bounced back and I don't have as many of them anymore. I mean, I'm lactose intolerant, but that was always a thing. I got lucky. I actually have my coach she actually shared about it on her story not too long ago, that she had actually anorexia nervosa, and oh my gosh, her name is Janice Liu. You can find her on Instagram. Some of her posts, like her before and after posts, are crazy because she definitely had what you would like associate with what an anorexic person looked like. Like she looked so frail and just, it was like the life was sucked out of her because literally you're not giving yourself the energy or the nutrients that your body needs to thrive. She recently had a scare that there may have been some irregularities in her intestines that she was very, very scared that it could have been cancer. And it was a whole like few days before she heard the news that she's okay. So she's fine. But I mean, just knowing that, like the possible risk of having something that as damning as cancer from a problem that can not easily, but at least be prevented is just very, very scary. Anyway, speaking of ways that speaking of the reasons for why this happens, that's where the research I did got very, very muddled, because like most things in psychology, as I learned more and more while I was doing this research, like everyone's different and there's really no clear, definite reason for why any of these disorders actually occur. So typically most people thought, like according to Very Well Mind, this is actually the most, I feel like, digestible.
Oh God, cringe.
Oh, for somebody who writes all the bad puns for our Instagram page, you're one to talk. It was written in a way that somebody with limited knowledge on neurobiology, such as me, could understand, is what I mean. So this is on Very Well Mind. We'll link it in our website. The article's called "The Different Causes of Eating Disorders." See, like super easy. The culture at large commonly blames eating disorders on oversimplified explanations such as the media's promotion of unrealistic slender bodies or on bad parenting. Even some health professionals buy into these explanations. So when I read that sentence, I was like, is that not the reason? Because for me, that was sort of the reason. This is a whole kind of different conversation, but like I was at the peak of my eating disorder. I feel like I was with a person that fetishized Asian women, specifically K-pop idols. That's a whole different conversation. But either way, if you don't know what a K-pop idol looks like, go Google like Blackpink. I don't know, some of the Twice, some of these other names. Just Google K-pop.
Okay, I'm gonna throw some out. A Girls' Generation.
Wait, we're gonna have to talk about this later, but I saw you posted a picture with a BTS sweatshirt, and I didn't know you were into BTS.
Oh yes, I fell in love with K-pop in 2015 before it was cool. So I'm kind of jaded. I'm kind of jaded. Okay, leave me alone. Like Shiny was my jam.
Wait, how have we been friends for this long and we've never talked about this? What? Okay, no. With K-pop around the same time as you. Anyway, we can't. Because literally we will never circle back if we don't. Anyway, K-pop beauty standards. Yeah, so they're typically very tall, thin, and slender women. Which is interesting because Asian people are typically a little shorter. So, like, it's like, I feel like that's actually, they're very influenced by Western beauty standards, because Western beauty standards are like, they want the tall, thin models. So that's kind of, I can see the influence there, Either way. Oh, by the way, there's actually research on that. I don't remember which article, but it did say that cultures that aren't exposed to Western beauty standards had less probability of having eating disorders in their culture, like in people in their culture, which is like also contradicting to what I just read. So do you understand what I mean?
Like it's both not completely caused by beauty standards, but it's also kind of, there's a correlation there.
Is. Yeah, there's just like, I think what they're trying to say is that there's just no definite reason, in that like it's all relative, which is just unhelpful sometimes, but hey. So that was my experience. On top of that, so environmental factors, which is huge. Environmental meaning social media, family, huge. Like, they also in this article say that it's not all about the family either. Here's the quote. Research shows that families, longtime scapegoats, do not cause eating disorders, or at least not in any simple, straightforward manner. And I have issues with this because I feel like, as a certain person in my family, specifically the woman that gave birth to me, that's my mom.
Oh, okay. We're just going to say it's your mom. All right. Yeah, it's your mother, definitely.
Yeah, no. I mean, if you follow me on Instagram, you know. I've stopped trying to protect it because I think it's problematic that moms just continue to do this. And I think that it's important for people, like especially impressionable people, to understand that you don't always have to listen to your parents. They're not always right, you know? So, listen to your parents when they're like preventing you from life or death situations and, trying to, you know what I mean?
This episode isn't about parenting. Maybe we'll do a future episode on that.
Yeah. I just wanted to not say, I didn't want people to just be like, fuck parents, So
anyways, I can see how they would be a contributing factor, but does the article ever say what is the cause of eating disorders? Or is it just like it's not all of these?
Yes and no. I don't know. Honestly, the way that they wrote it, it just felt like I was reading things in circles, and I never really had like a full, like I was not satisfied with anything I read, basically. Either way, I mean, we'll link this article in our website, and you guys can tell us what you think, because I don't know. Either way. I don't know. I feel like at this point I should probably step away from the research aspect because it's kind of muddling my message.
Well, what was your experience and recovery like?
Like, I mean, it's just so interesting because at the peak of my eating disorder, I was competing in pageants. Of course. It's another problematic thing. Being compared to like skinnier, taller, pretty girls and stuff like that. Not that I wasn't pretty, it's just like I wasn't exactly what they wanted. It was just like, it's kind of unfair to think that, a girl who's like 5'8" just has a better chance at winning a beauty pageant because she's 5'8", like it's, it's so stupid.
I know nothing about this. 5'8" sounds like a wonderful height, but so does 5'3", so okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, that's the problem with beauty standards. It's like, why? Either way, it's everyone's beautiful in their own special way, and you just shouldn't listen to that stuff. I didn't know that when I was 20. I was very impressionable, so it's like the K-pop idols, the pageant girls, my mom basically telling me that, I mean, at this point, I wasn't really, I don't know, I guess I shouldn't talk about like love life situations at the time because I was young, like super young. So it didn't really count to me as much as like my more recent relationships. But she basically told me that like, if I don't stay skinny or stay pretty, I'm never going to find a husband that's going to stay with me. Like that, that was like ingrained in me. I don't know. And at the time it's like, yeah, I wanted to be pretty too. So the problem was that like what I was taught was pretty didn't fully fit what was capable for my body to be naturally, So it's just, that's where the eating disorder came in. It was just like, well, what do I do now? Like, I can't eat as much as everyone else. Or like, well, maybe if I throw up the food that I just ate, somehow it won't make me fat. It kind of, if you think about it in that way, it doesn't, like in hindsight, it doesn't make any sense. But when you're like so far in it, that's all that makes sense to you, is that like, well, I want to do whatever I can to not gain weight. upsetting to relive. So either way, what the recovery was like, it's funny because my coach had like the same reaction. Was like, she doesn't really talk about eating disorder recovery on her page because she doesn't fully know what she did to recover. It just kind of started to happen after, like, just over time, she just realized, like, I don't want to die. So I'm just gonna eat better.
I mean, that's a big one. Yeah, not wanting to die.
Yeah, so I just, like, for me, I think over time it just, like, wasn't worth it anymore. Like, all of the different things that can happen when I'm outside of those very serious reasons I listed earlier. They're, like, one of the symptoms is, like, decaying teeth, because when you throw up, your stomach acid goes back through your mouth. So, like, that's, yeah. That never happened, thank God, because, like I said, it wasn't as consistent as it could have been, thankfully. But there were times where I would just, like, eat full sleeves of, like, Ritz crackers and then go straight to the bathroom and just throw it up. And I feel like there's a little more than just the eating. There was also the rush of it coming back out. Like, it created a dopamine rush, which actually there is research on, that I don't fully feel confident explaining it. But as I think we've talked about before, dopamine is the hormone in your body, in your brain, that controls contentness. Like, serotonin is, like, happiness, right? Like, so dopamine is, like, contentness. Women with bulimia have a weaker than normal response in brain regions that are part of the dopamine-related reward circuitry, while the reward circuits in women with anorexia are overly sensitive to food-related stimuli. This is according to Very Well Mind. So the way I understand it is that they're opposite. So people with anorexia, when they eat food, they don't feel good about it. But when people with bulimia eat food, it is like a dopamine rush. So it makes them feel good. But then immediately right after, they feel guilty about it. And that's why they go purge.
And then purging makes them get back to that, like, normal contentness and okayness.
Yeah. Furthermore, like, for most people, eating is an enjoyable activity. But for people with anorexia, they'll often report sitting down to a meal makes them feel worried. So it, like, just food triggers anxiety and uncomfortableness. It just sounds like a terrible, terrible existence, you know? Like,
and then you have to eat every day, a few times a day, most days.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, at the same time, everybody is different. So you can't really, there's no, like, one size fits all way to eat. People with anorexia, the release of dopamine in the dorsal striatum triggers anxiety rather than pleasure. See, that's what I mean by neurobiology. I just don't fully grasp it yet. I feel like if I had more time and took some classes, I'd understand this a little better. But according to neurobiology, this basically what I said. I don't fully understand it, but I know that there's science that backs it up. Do I sound stupid?
No, I get what you're saying. I mean, all this is new information to me because I literally I knew like the term anorexic usually meant somebody was very thin for probably unhealthy reasons, and I knew that bulimic people threw up after eating, and there's one other one that I've heard of, binge eating, where people eat way more than their body can handle.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that one's like the one that people don't even talk about as much because they just chalk it up to people like being lazy and fat and like obese, you know? Like, it's like most people who are obese don't want to be obese and know that eating is like that overeating and eating bad foods isn't good for you. But there's like a psychological reason behind and food addiction, which is like some people have a chemical response in their brain to food, much like alcoholics have for alcohol. Like they just can't stop eating. So it's just, there's so many different types of eating disorders and different reasons for them that I just don't fully feel comfortable educating people about it, because I don't know all that much other than my personal experience and the things that I looked up for myself back at the time. Like, oh, by the way, I knew all of the bad things about bulimia, but I kept doing it because I had the eating disorder. So a lot of people who have disorders like this, you can't just tell them, well, why don't you just eat normally? Why don't you just like be healthy? You can't do that. You can't say that to somebody with an eating disorder, because it doesn't work that way all the time.
I'm sure that's not helpful at all.
No. So, I mean, I guess that's why it should be talked about more, right? Because people don't understand. People who don't have it don't understand. And we talked about this before with, because an eating disorder is just like any other type of psychological problem. Like, it's a disease, and most of them aren't very well understood by people who don't have it. Like, and that's why we're trying our best. I'm trying my best to educate myself and our audience, like you guys, that about it. So I hope I'm doing an okay job.
I mean, I feel like I've learned a lot already. I know that most of psychology is still like in the process of being researched and studied, because it's not as easy as you would imagine researching something like this is, because of how diverse people are, and because there's good laws out there that protect people from being experimented on.
Fair enough.
So, like, stuff that should have more research on is just, it's hard to come by, it's hard to do, and people who do it have a lot more patience than I do.
That's fair. Yeah, so there's a lot of things like neurotransmitters, and I remember learning a little bit about this, but like I said, I feel like I'm not an expert, so I can't fully explain everything to you guys. Well, all that aside, let's just talk about me then, right? And what I 100% know based on my experience is that eating disorder is like a living hell. And for me, and for some people, for example, my coach and other people in the community that I talk to online and in person, some people, like a lot of people, I don't know, more people than you would imagine experience eating disorders, because some people do a really good job at hiding them. When I was younger, like back in like 20-ish, I had a friend who was older than me. She was like closer to 30. And when I was talking about my body image issues and binging and purging and stuff like that, and she just said like, well, like, I think everyone does that. And for somebody as impressionable as me, I was like, oh, then it's okay, right? Like, so I guess it's okay if I do it every once in a while, right? No. No, it's not. But because somebody older than me that I looked up to said that she did it too, I was like, oh, then that's fine. Like, you don't really realize those things. So that's why it's so important to set a good example for impressionable people, younger people, that it's okay to look look how you look. And there's such a separate, there's zero correlation between health and weight. Like, people think that being heavy can be correlated to unhealthiness and stuff like that. But like, it's not always that. Like, there's so many different things that go into why someone looks a certain way or weighs a certain weight. Like, there's thyroid issues, which my mom has. I don't think she had that particular symptom, but I knew somebody who gained tons of weight because her thyroid was like out of whack. And I knew another person who actually lost a lot of weight to the point where she looked like gaunt and like very, very malnourished. So it's just, I don't know. Like I said, so many different things.
Yeah, it's complex for sure.
It's definitely a very complex topic, and I think that we as individuals can do our best to just set good examples for the people in our lives and to educate ourselves as much as we can, and to just eat. Enjoy your food, but if it goes in excess.
So what do you think society at large could do to help with some of these issues, aside from, just talking about it and people knowing that it's a problem?
I don't know. Just honestly, I think that what I feel like really affected me, and what some of these articles actually say isn't really the main factor, which confused me, is that you should set a good example for people who are more impressionable than you, and not enforce such strong opinions about how somebody looks on them, because it really sticks with them, especially when you start young.
If you could go back to your younger self when you were very first starting with it, would there be any advice that you yourself would give yourself?
Nothing that I haven't already mentioned, but I don't know. It's really hard because when I was 20, I was a little different than some people because I didn't listen to anybody because I wasn't in my right mind. So it's harder for me to have that conversation, I guess. But yeah, that girl was hurting. That's all I have to say. I think that she needed to be more kind to herself. She really didn't like herself a lot. I wrote about it on my Instagram. It's hard. I mean, I'm actually surprisingly pretty well put together, probably because I already processed it since I wrote it down, which is a good coping mechanism, by the way. If you don't journal, try that, Sometimes when you just write it out, it just feels better and you don't think about it as much anymore. But so my Instagram is kind of almost like a public journal that I share little bits and pieces that I feel like other people might also need to hear too. And yeah, I basically just told my younger self that was like, she just needed love. And I think that's so important, is to preach self-love, because love goes a long way. I think it's as woo-woo as I am, love is the best medicine. So interesting. I don't know. I feel like I'm on the pragmatic side, but I think it's okay to believe in a little bit of magic if it works for you. That's the good part about religions and all that type of stuff, is if it helps you make better decisions and be a healthier and more productive and overall better human being, then okay, So for me, I like to think that positivity overall, just having positive self-talk, loving myself, all of the above, it makes me feel better overall. And then I end up making, naturally over time, better decisions because I care about myself more. I think there's also science to back that up too. I just didn't do the research on that, so I can't.
You hope, more like you hope there's research out there to support it.
Yeah. There is research for sure on mind body connections and stuff like that, on meditations and that type of stuff, which is in a similar realm. But yeah, let's not talk about that today.
All right. Well, I guess we'll sign off for today. Make sure you follow us on the Cat and V Show to get our take on the Demi Lovato versus yogurt shop situation. And we'll see you in next week's video. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at How's That Working For You and at the Cat and V Show. See you next week. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Hey friends, it's your girls Kat and V, and we have a brand new podcast dropping every Wednesday.
So get your ear holes ready so you can join us as we catch up and spill the tea about relationships, adulting, and whatever else life decides to check at us.
Be sure to check out the Kat and V Show on your favorite podcast directory.